Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's class. Welcome back to beginner's class to graphic design. This is lecture 2. I'm Francisca Arhinful, and I'll be your host for today. So today our guest trainer wouldn't be joining us. I'll be the one teaching. If you can hear me, can you type hi or okay or yes in the chat box? Okay. So I'll go ahead and pray. Just a short prayer, then we can start. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. Thank you for the class we are about to have. Teach us and guide us through this training. Help us learn and impact knowledge into us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I am excited about today's training. But if you are new here, make sure you subscribe to this channel because we'll be uploading the rest of the classes here. I hope everybody can see me and everybody can hear me as well. This is my ever first live session on YouTube, so if anything goes bad, please pardon me. Now let's get right into it. So for today, we are looking at the fundamentals of graphic design. We are looking at the principles and also the elements of graphic design. I like to think as elements of graphic design like a resource. Okay, so we use to put together the design. The components used to create visually appealing and effective designs. So these elements come together to communicate the ideas and the emotions and also the messages that we are trying to communicate, right? Um, I I sort of compare the elements to ingredients of food. So let's say when a chef wants to cook, the ingredient that they use to cook is the element, right? And the principles becomes the recipe that the to cook. So the principles, they are the rules, the regulations. So when you talk about elements, just think about them like you are cooking and the resources you need or what you put into the food. Okay, so let's say your salt, your pepper, your tomatoes, that comes together to form the food. So if you are preparing maybe soup, your fish, that's you add to the soup. That forms part of the element. So when it's we have line, we have shapes, we have color, we have texture, we have typography, and then we have value. Okay. So I also believe that we should add images to elements of design because images form big part of graphic design and images can actually break or make your design. So these are the elements of graphic design, and then we'll we will explain it more as we line. Okay. So when we are comparing line to something in food, we'll say that it's maybe a noodle or a strand. So this is just my way of comparing the element to something that we can be familiar with, right? So just like lines creates direction and structure in a design, noodle in a food can also guide the presentation or strands of melted cheese and flour. So lines mostly we use when you see maybe a billboard and maybe the title of maybe a brand design. Okay, so maybe if the title is maybe like uh, "Get in touch now" or promo, and they underline with a big line that separates the rest of the elements from it separates the title from the rest of the element. So it gives it direction, it gives it structure, and it gives the viewer some kind of a direction, like where their eyes should move, right? go straight to some visual presentations. So line can be either straight, curved, thick, or solid. They help guide the viewer's eye and create separation, as I've already said, right? So these are some of the examples of lines. So we have a straight line, we have a dotted line, and then we also have a curved line, we have a solid line, we have a thick line. So some of the lines are really, really thin, thick, right? Now let's also look at color. So color, as we know, is one of the most powerful elements. Color evokes emotions. For example, red represents what? Agency. So when we see red, it's like we are drawing our attention to something. It's like it's urgent. Look at it now, right? But when we see green, it's more of growth. We are talking more of growth. And then yellow has always been we've always associated yellow with um, richness, right? Because gold is yellow. So we always associate yellow with richness, right? So these colors, when we are building a brand or we are designing for a brand, we should make sure that the colors we are using convey the message that we are trying to communicate, right? So if you want to communicate trust, like banks, and if you go and use maybe yellow, that is like a little of that. But if you use blue, blue is for trust. So if you use blue, people get to feel like, oh, I can actually trust this brand. And most brands have their brand colors. So make sure that you know the brand colors and you're actually using the brand colors. Look at shape, right? So when it comes to shape, shape is a two-dimensional area. That's just like a definition. When it comes to shape, we use shape in everything. Almost every design that you will see is either there's a circle somewhere, there's a rectangle somewhere. Even on your screen, you see down here, you can see the smooth tech in collaboration with BrandAd. What is down there, the yellow bar down there, is a shape that I actually put there. So that helps separate the rest of the design from the information I'm trying to pass down there, right? Because the information up there in the white background is the main info, but I want to add extra information. So now I put a shape there and then I add the rest of it. So shape helps us like separate different elements from different. Mostly we put maybe a speaker's picture if we are designing for maybe a church program and they have speakers. We can put them into squares or circles, right? And it makes the arrangement quite nice. So mostly too, we can see that most brands that sell maybe shoes, they sell products, right? Brands that sell maybe shoes, makeup, or they do braiding or something. Most of their flyers, they put the shapes in there and then put the product in it. It makes you easy to recognize that, oh, okay, this is one product and this is another product, right? Even without you trying to figure out, oh, the list of the product, even if you have not seen the list of the products on the flyer yet, the shapes actually help you differentiate the different elements on it. We have different kinds of shapes. We have the geometric and then we have the organic. We also have the mod. Like when companies use the geometric shapes, it gives you a clean or modern looks, right? So we have the organic shapes, which is more of the natural element. So a leaf have a shape, right? A leaf have a shape. It is not something someone sit down and calculate from one point to another point. But a rectangle it has equal like the lines that forms together or meet together to form the shapes has been practically calculated, right, and formed. But with the natural shapes like a leaf, it is not really formed. It is not really calculated. So that are different types of shades that we have, and I've put in some here so that we that's typography. Oh, one of my favorite element, because typography is so broad. We actually have designers just typography. They are typographers. So they create the different kind of fonts that we see. Let me bring it to something we are familiar with when you are creating a document. So let's see, you are creating an essay. You are um, creating an essay. Maybe they've given you a homework or an assignment. Those that create resumes and all that. When you go into Google Doc or any of the softwares you are using to create, right, you will see font names like Times uh, New Romance and all that. So it's those fonts is what we know as typography, and those are actually created, right? So how a text look, the structure we have used it, okay, so that is called typography. So the style, the arrangement, choosing the right font for any design is really crucial. And let me say a sort of rule about using fonts for designing is that we shouldn't use, at most you should use three, okay, you shouldn't actually use more than two, but mostly we'll use maybe three. But one should maybe be your primary font, the other one is your supportive font, and the other is just some a font that you will use to highlight or emphasis on important elements in your design. So don't usually use more than three fonts. Okay, if you start using more fonts in your design, everything looks scattered. So make sure that you are not using more than three fonts in your design, and know which font works better for what kind of designs. So Times New Roman is more for newspapers, classic look, and mostly we use them to write documents because they are easy to be read, right? People can easily see what you are reading, right? This font that is showing in my presentation is actually called Open Sans, and that I mostly use Montserrat for the headings. So you see, it's clean and it's modern. You can easily see it, right? Yes. So fonts are really important, and make sure you remember that you shouldn't use more than three fonts. At most, three fonts is the best. Now to value. Okay, value in simple terms is like we are looking at the lightness or darkness of a color. So how deep is the green color you are using? How deep is the yellow color you are using? Okay, we mostly represent them in gradients, and then we give them variation hue. So if you add all these elements to your design, you are creating some kind of contrast, which is a part of principles, and we'll come there later and explain how we use the color to create contrast, right? So with this, we are able to what? Create some form of contrast in our design. So when you use a gradient in your design, you create contrast. If maybe you use a deep blue color in one part of the design, you can use a lighter shade in another part of the design, so that it creates also variation and it is not the same thing. So imagine everything you are seeing in the design is all black. You will not be able to read it, right? Or even if it is maybe black and white and there's no different shades of the black, there's no it is the feel, okay? It is how a design appears. So we are looking at how a design appears, right? So um let's say some designs look a little very sharp, they are very shiny. When you see them, they are very sharp, and some have some rough texture to it, so it's not that sharp, and it makes you easy it you can easily see what is there, and you can easily like lean back and read, right? So as you can see in the presentation, this is more smooth, okay, but then the top one is rough, right? Yeah. So some design appears smooth, rough, or grainy, adding depth and realism. So it makes it more modern. It gives it high end, like it gives it high end value. Mostly when you see a sharp design, it takes you aback a little. But then if they add a little kind of texture here and there, it's interesting. It actually draws you in, right? Yes. So that is the purpose of texture. Now let's also look at the principles of graphic design. So far we've looked at color, we've looked at line, we've looked at shapes, we've looked at texture, and we've looked at value. And we say these are the elements of designing. I also said that let's compare that to a chef cooking and the ingredients they use to actually cook, right? So if a chef is cooking jollof or something, the tomatoes, the pepper, the onions, and all that, that is the elements that they are using to cook. So ingredients equals elements, right? But when it comes to principles, then we are looking at the process, the rules, the regulations. So how the chef use these ingredients to make the food, how the amount of salt they add, the amount of pepper, the amount of tomatoes, how do they proportion that with maybe the rice they are adding to the stew to make the jollof, right? So that is basically the principles. So principles of design are the please can you still see my screen? The slide I'm sharing, can you all still see it? If you can see it, can you type yes in the in our chats? Okay. Awesome is saying no. Awesome. Please kindly recheck if you can still see my screen. Oh, sorry about that. Let me stop sharing and then reshare. Okay, let's share again. Okay, I hope it is showing now. Great. Okay. Kindly prompt me when you can't see my screen. Okay. All right. Thank you. So we are moving on to the principle, as I was saying, like the foundational guidelines. They are the rules and regulations that guide us in designing. Okay. So we look at balance. Okay. So balancing is like arranging design so that they look they feel the same, they look the same or feel the same on both sides of the design. One part doesn't look heavier or one part doesn't feel heavier. Like you put all the elements on the left side of your canvas. So if you have a square, and then you put all the elements that you want to use on just the left side. That means that the left side will look heavier because everybody will be looking at the left side. All the elements are there, and the right side is just empty, right? So balancing is making sure that your design, not no part feels more heavier, no part is drawing all that the attention or causing distraction, right? So make sure that when you arrange your elements, if there's a text somewhere that is making your eye move to that place so that you cannot actually focus on the rest of the designs, you do something about that so that it doesn't draw all the attention. So that is like balance, basically balance. So equal distribution of your visual weight. Make sure that all the elements you are arranging, so your images, your text, your fonts, your color, comes together to form a whole, right? And it does one part doesn't draw all the attention. So that is balance. And then we are looking at movement. Let's look at contrast first. So, like a good dish having a contrasting flavors. Contrast also means that your elements should have variations so that when they are being seen, it doesn't look the same, it doesn't look static. Okay. So contrast basically means that there's some form of contraction, like it's not really the same, right? So I think that will go with what we know as repetition. So even if you are repeating an element, if maybe there's a red button somewhere, okay, you get a white text like the one we can see in the white text, which is the services that we provide. Okay, you see that the services is in red, and probably if it was in only white, we will not really focus on that. So it is creating contrast. Let's look at the background too. So with the background, there we have like a brownish, then we have a more of light brown in the middle, right? To create a contrast. So if it was all black, now the middle part creating some kind of illusion for us to focus there and see other elements will not be happening. So we'll see all black background and nobody will be interested in door there. That's when we will go and see, oh, there's an image there, there's a text there, there's a logo there, there's a contact information there. So if we don't create the contrast in our design, then we are losing the attention of our viewers, right? And remember that in lecture one, we said the purpose of a design is to communicate information. So if you are not communicating the information, then you are not achieving the purpose, right? Yes. So now let's move on to talk about emphasis into some specific elements of your design. Can we see that the contact here is very big? Give a general example. So mostly church flyers have the title of the program very big. It's in that either in the middle or at the top. So that is to tell you that this is what the program is about. So maybe they are saying it's an hallelujah challenge or it's prayer festival or 3 days fasting. Okay, so that is the main information you are trying to pass on, right? So you put emphasis on that information by maybe using a font or size or texture or color or shape to put emphasis on it. So putting emphasis on it is putting more focus on it or putting more importance on it or drawing more attention to it. So on this design, everything on it is important, right? But the person wants you to know that you can contact them here. And mostly social media flyers. This is a social media flyer for a beauty parlor, right? They want you to know that you can contact them, right? That is the main purpose they are doing the advert. So after you've read all the information on it, The main information they want you to know is how you can contact them. So the contact has been given more emphasis, and that is in size and also in color, right? So you see the text is more bigger than mostly anything on this design. So it is showing that that is more important. So that is how we create emphasis. We can use color or texture or shape or font type to create emphasis. Also, you can see that there is different elements here, but then immediately someone look at it, something they look at it more is the services, because it's in different color background, right? The background is in red, and that is the only thing on it. So it's standing out. So everybody see it and say, oh, there's services. They go and see it. So that is creating emphasis, and the emphasis help you create push more focus on the most important element on the design. It doesn't mean that all elements are not important, but some are more important than the others. And how you demonstrating that is by creating emphasis. Let's continue by looking at alignment. So alignment is very interesting. How we arrange tests to go together, right? So let's look at the. I'm using this slide to explain all the different kinds of principles we have, because we have a practical example here to look at, right? So with the alignment test, the under the services, all the services we have mentioned or listed there, they've been aligned together. So align is arranging element to go together. Okay, the pedicure follows the facials follows the pedicure, hairstyling follows. They are not scattered everywhere, right? They have arranged to follow each other. I will. Can we also see my slide? AJ is saying no. Can anybody? Okay, let's move on. So pages, okay. The big package. We are creating possibility that adding all the what the package comes with to the heading big package, right? So imagine we wrote big package here, and then we moved. I really hope that we can see the slide, because it's important we see what I'm illustrating so that we can follow. So if we can actually see the slide, can somebody prompt me if you cannot? Okay. Is my slide visible? Can anybody prompt me if my slide is showing? Okay, let's move on. I'm not sure if my slide is showing, but let's move on. Talking about contrast, talking about proximity, that is how close or far away you arrange elements together. Okay, so if the elements are supposed to go together, you make sure that they are arranged together, and instead of maybe the package, its price is 195, right? So we shouldn't put the 195 far away from the big package. With that, when the person reads the big package, they instantly know how much it costs. But if you put it far away in the design, it is still in the design, right? But then they will not know which ones that were like it relates to what we're actually trying to relate it to. So proximity helps us arrange what the information that goes together. So like a church flyer, the time, um the dates mostly go together, and then the venue will also follow, right? So that when somebody reads the time, they instantly know, oh, this is the date, and they also know where we are having the program. So that is basically what we call movement. Okay, so the same as how we arrange food to lead the eye, designing part in visuals that guide attention. So we design elements, or we put elements together so that when somebody read one thing, they are immediately follow attention. We are communicating information, right? So anything you put together, they so with this design, for example, if we read the name of the company or the brand, sorry about that. If we read the name of the company or the brand, then the person will instantly accept. And then we've also provided some kind of pictures, right? When they move from there, they want to see, oh, where are their contacts? So make sure that it is following like that. So you don't bring the contact first before you come and bring services, or you don't bring the allocation first before you come and bring services. Because if I see a company's name, what I'm interested in next is what do they do. So you tell me what they do, then you tell me how I can reach them or where I can find them. So you don't put their social media handle and oh, it's light out here, so pardon me if you cannot see my face in the view showing there. But let's still continue. So, like I was saying, you don't put their social media handles under their brand name, because that's not what the person will be interested in seeing, right? Yes, what they'll be interested in seeing the most is what do they do. So basically, that is creating movement in design. Let's also look at repetition. So repetition is very important. If you are using fonts, like I said earlier, you don't use more than three fonts, at most three, but you can also use two, right? So with repetition, it helps you not create a scattered design. Okay. So if you are using color, maybe two or three colors, okay, and then the color is black and maybe white, and then maybe you're adding red to it. You make sure that these colors blend together to come together. So you are repeating the colors in the design, and you are not using red, gold, green. So repetition help us to make sure that the elements are cohesive and they are not scattered around. So you can see that the font used for the brand logo is the same font we've used for writing the services, right? So we've repeated that, right? The same way that the way we position the way we position the images here, you can see that they are positioned the same way, right? We are repeating the pattern, so we give it a pattern, right? The same way that the contact here follows the contact bar here, and then it also follows like this. We've also made sure that we are repeating some of the colors. So the Brown black background color has also been used for the contact bar here, right? So repetition help us to uh, make our design more cohesive and make sure that we are not losing the visuality, we are not losing the main information that we are trying. Now let's move on to white space. White space is so important. Look at just my slide. You can see that there's white space all over, right? I could have made the elements bigger to cover every space on the design, but I didn't do that. I gave it spaces. So the white space is also called negative space. We leave them, the eye can get a break when it is reading. And also, it creates some form of uh, room, right? It creates some form of room. So white space are really important. Make sure you are always leaving white space, especially when you are designing for printing. Because when you are printing designs, mostly uh, their edges. So this side of the design and this side, so the top, the down, some parts may be cut off, right? So make sure you leave spaces cut off. Yes. So white spaces are really important. Don't overcloud your design. Make sure you are not overcrowding your design. Leave room for and for the eyes to refocus on other elements. We are also looking at variety. So although we said repetition, if you use only one font to create your design, you will see that everything kind of look the same, right? And it's not interesting. Imagine if this design only had a black color inside. We will not be able to read, or if it has only red, it will look a lot like it will look so shiny and we cannot read. It helps us to create balance, create contrast, right? You can see that these principles work together. So one is helping the other come to life. So balance helps us to group things. It helps us create cohesiveness. Now the variety will help us create contrast because we are seeing black, we are seeing yellow. So it is creating contrast. Now, if we don't have any variety, it is difficult to read. It is difficult to focus. And then the last principle we are talking about is unity. Fibers come together to form a perfect dish, right? So elements was connected. So with Unity, you can see that the images here, they are sort of uh, communicating the information, right? So they are helping us communicate our um, the main meaning of our design. But if we use maybe someone dancing, we've totally gone off board. It doesn't have anything to do with this design. So it doesn't bring our elements together. The same way that if we chose to use maybe green to come and just drop it in the design, it doesn't our design work together. So make sure that when you are using elements, you are using pores, they all come together to form a one cohesive design like this one. This design is really nice. So it comes together to form a design like this one. So another design example of a design is this one too. And we can see that it has everything has come together to form one. So they are united. Everything it's part of the design. It's not out of place. Let me say it that way. So that is basically our element of design and our principles of design, and these are important, especially the principles. Make sure that the principle you are using your principles because it's like your guideline or your regulations that govern you. And if you don't use them well, sometimes you can break the rules. People break the rules and they still bring out beautiful designs. But if you are breaking the rules, make sure that they work together. The elements work together, and the principles you have applied actually makes your design great. And the design communicates the information you are trying to communicate. So I wanted us to do a short demo of how all these things come together. Let me see. Okay, so this is Canva, right? Okay, so we are going to work on a short project to see how all these elements come together. So this is a blank canvas. This is your working space. Okay, I'm not quite sure the size of this yet, but this is basically my slide size. So I think we can go here and see maybe the size, but that's not important now. So we can just continue. Then, so the you see the background is basically white, right? Okay. Now, if you want to add a shape to it, this demo is not about how to use Canva. I just want to show you how the elements and then the principles work together to make a great design. So if you want to add a shape to our design, it looks like the network is a little slow. Okay, the network is really, really, really slow. Okay. Okay. So you see that you can actually see elements, right? So elements of design, and then I'm going to pick a shape. So this one, and the shape is in blue, right? But I'm going to change the color. So a shape is one element of design. So I've added a shape, which is an element of design, to my design. Now I'm also going to change the color, adding a color, which is also an element of design. Right? So I'm sure you are getting how they come together to form a cohesive design. Now, after we've added our color, we want to create contrast, okay, or variety. So I'm going to add another shape, and this time around, I want different edge. So I'll add a different shape. Let me actually change the color here. Remember, we said different shades of colors also create value, right? So I'm going to give it a lighter shade of the orange color. Now I'm going to increase my, uh, it's actually scaling my shape. So we scale the shape to cover here. And then you see I'm leaving white space at the top there, right? So I'm going to actually rechange the second shape color to maybe blue black or something. Because these colors doesn't really go together for what I want to create. So we change it to maybe this color, right? Great. Now as we have changed it, maybe the company gave us a logo, right? So where do we position the logo to make it great? Now we are looking at arrangement, arranging our element to be cohesive and create unity. So now we'll bring maybe a logo into it. Let's just use any logo from here. So food logo. I'm creating a price list, or let's say a menu for a food logo. So let's say food logo. And Canva have mostly elements there already, so you can just pick something from. And they've given us different options, right? But most of them are paid, so let's just use this one. Okay. And then I'm going to change it to maybe a white color. I actually wanted a black and white logo. Let me see if I can find a black and white logo. So basically different logos. So okay. For that not to waste our time, let's just move on, right? So now we are creating contrast, we are creating variations, and then we are aligning our elements. So now we should add text, which is typography, and that is another element of design. So we are adding another element of design. So we go to text, and then let's say we are adding the business name or the food brand name. So we go to text and we click on add heading, right? And then we change our heading to a color that is visible on the yellow background. And we are not repeating the same yellow on a yellow background because that means we are not creating contrast and it will not be readable. So we give it a different color to make it readable. And let's say it is called Happy Home, right? Now know that we can also see the way I'm aligning the logo with the brand name, right? So we can either reduce it, so that is font type and font size. And then we can change the font type as well. So this is typography. So you can change the font type into different fonts. So I just change it into Montserrat. So that is the brand name. We can add any other information we want to add here, right? If you want to add another text, we come together also to add maybe a subheading and then maybe the price list. So we are creating a menu, right? So let's go here and create maybe the first thing we want to see is maybe pork. So the pork, and you see the text has a different color, so it is showing on the black background. So that is also color, and that is also an element. So the text, looking at proximity, if the pork has different elements that comes with the menu. So let's say the pork has a price tag, okay? So we can add a price to it, the price food. Now let's add maybe a line to separate the pork from other ones that we will create. So we can duplicate this and bring it here, and then we are aligning them. So you can see that, oh, is my screen still showing? Sorry about that. I think I was too engaged in what I was sharing that I didn't check if it was showing. Okay, I'm resharing so that we can all see. Can we all see now? Prompt me if you can see now. Great. Okay. Thank you, Augustine, for prompting me. I was what I was basically saying that we are creating a menu for a food brand or a price list for a food brand, right? Those are like some of the maybe a brooch or a flyer that we share around so people know that oh, this food costs this much and this is the restaurant, it's located here, we can contact them here, we can order from them here, right? So this is just showing the background. So the yellow is the background, and I started by adding a shape to it. So this is just a shape, so I can move it around, and then I added a color to it, right? And then afterwards, I added a text. I added another shape, which is this brown one, and added a color to it, right? And then I added my logo in a white color on the background, which is yellow, so that it creates variation and actually see it, right? Great. Now, I was also saying that we can add a brand name, and because the brand name is one of the most important elements on this design, we make it big. So the font has to be bigger than the rest so that people can actually read, oh, this is the name of the brand. What did they do? Then we come to the list, right? So when we come to the list, I was saying that the pork is maybe one of the ingredient food or menu on the menu. So this food has different things that come with it. Maybe they serve it with rice or noodles or something. So we'll add those ones under it. But before we add it, we also add price, right? But I was saying that we can create another food here. So this one can maybe have um, a fish or beef or something. So let's change this one to beef. And I hope that we are seeing how we are using our elements. So this one is typography, right? And so far we have used shape, we have used color, we have used uh, type of fonts, right? So that typography. And after this, I want we can underline this one to give it more emphasis, right? And also create some kind of structure for our design. So if you go here and you search for line, now we can bring the line.